Russell Westbrook. After I carefully watched number 0, as in 0 rings, Russell Westbrook, this entire basketball season, I watched every dribble, I watched every turnover, I watched every wildly missed shot, and I came to this conclusion. Russell Westbrook, quote unquote, slam dunk, first ballot, Hall of Famer, does not belong in the Hall of Fame. I came to the conclusion that for sure, Russell Westbrook does not belong in the NBA's all-time top 75 in honor of this 75th year of the NBA. And to demonstrate this, allow me briefly to walk you back through the most bizarre rise of any player in the history of this league. It's 75 years, along with the parts that I played in said rise. Russell Westbrook stayed 2 years at UCLA, and as you know, most future surefire slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famers are one and dones. But his freshman year at UCLA, Westbrook could not beat out Darren Collison. No crime, but still could not beat him out. Did start one game, averaged 9 minutes per, and 3.4 points per game. This is Russell Westbrook. Stayed a second year, did start 34 games, averaged a grand total of 12.7 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 4.3 assists, far from averaging a triple-double. But he did win Conference Defensive Player of the Year. And when I read this the other night, I thought, that's odd, because Russell Westbrook in the NBA defensively has been considered more of a weakness than a strength. Okay. Yet, Sam Presti, the GM in Oklahoma City, took Russell Westbrook 4th overall. And a shock to me and to many other people, I did not see that coming when I watched UCLA, and I watched UCLA quite a bit that year, his second year. Remember just a couple of weeks back, LeBron James said Sam Presti is the real MVP in OKC. Okay, so his biggest claim to fame was Westbrook 4th overall. And I have many good sources in Oklahoma City because I'm from there, born and raised, and I can tell you that Sam Presti spoiled Russell Westbrook rotten. This was his diamond in the rough, his discovery, and he favored his discovery even over Kevin bleepin' Durant. My background with Kevin, I was on a show called Cold Pizza on ESPN2. And in Kevin's 1 year in college at Texas, I began to rave about him, and I said, this guy is going to win multiple NBA scoring titles. My debate partners on Cold Pizza often laughed at me for that opinion until we had the great Bill Self on one day, obviously the coach of now national championship Kansas. And Bill Self interrupted his interviewer on Cold Pizza to say, hey, tell Skip he's right about Kevin Durant. He's going to win multiple scoring titles. Yet, what started to happen for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and what did I start to draw attention to? Russell Westbrook began to take more shots than Kevin Durant. And it offended me because it was just flat out wrong. Russell Westbrook wasn't much of a shooter. In those days, he could at least make his free throws at an 80% clip, but from three, nightmare. Well, what's he doing taking more shots than Kevin? And yet Kevin defended his little buddy, little brother Westbrook by calling me out for that criticism and saying to the Oklahoman reporter, Skip Bayless doesn't know SH about basketball. Oh, really? Okay. So then why was I the first to report that the reason Kevin Durant ultimately left Oklahoma City to join forces with the Golden State Warriors was because he finally decided he could not win a championship in OKC with Russell Westbrook as his primary decision maker and point guard. Remember, Westbrook got to dribble the ball up every time for those Thunder and decide, your turn or my turn? I think it's my turn. Those were the days I nicknamed him West Brick. And I guess it stuck. And I'm pretty sure I was original with that nickname. And the backlash got so great that when I went back to my hometown, as I've told you on a previous podcast, 2012 for the NBA Finals, Thunder versus Heat, I needed a 24-hour bodyguard because I was getting so many death threats from Thunder fans in my hometown of Oklahoma City over Russell Westbrook. Just bizarre. But Kevin left and appeared to have left Russ in a lurch until Russ made a staggering discovery. He realized, did Russell Westbrook, that if he went after every rebound, every loose ball rebound, like his life depended on it, and if he continued to attack the basket with the athleticism and explosion that he possessed, that if he played with the energy he played with every dribble, every night, that he could start, as he brought two defenders to him at the rim, he could start leaving the ball on the floor for a Steven Adams or an Enes Kanter, in those days the big man in Oklahoma City, and they could dunk it, and it's called an assist. You got rebounds, you got assists, you're naturally going to get double-digit points just because you're that athletic, and all of a sudden, Russell Westbrook reinvented this thing called the triple-double. And he found it wasn't just every couple of weeks that he could pull one off. He found out he could pull it off every single night. God bless the man. I fell right into the trap. I'll be the first to admit, not since the great Oscar Robertson back in 62-63 had any human averaged a triple-double. But Russ was doing it, and it was inhuman. It was otherworldly. It was, good Lord, have mercy on all our souls. It was runaway MVP in 2017. Whew, the numbers. 2017, Russ averaged 31.6 points a game, 10.7 rebounds, 10.8 assists, runaway MVP. That team actually, you might say, overachieved at 47-35, no KD. The 6th seed in the West, lost to Houston predictably in 5 games over and out. 2018, here he came again. 25.4, 10.1, 10.3. That led the league in assists. That was with Paul George and Melo. They finished 48-34, 4th seed, not bad. Lost to the Jazz in the first round in 6. 2019, big numbers, 22-9, 11.1, 10.7, 49-37, not bad. Lost to Portland in the first round in 5 as the 6th seed. 2020 with James Harden in Houston. Not a triple-double, but the team went 44-28, and Russ missed the first 4 games of their first-round series against OKC, and they managed to pull it off and out in 7, but went on second round with Russ in the lineup and lost to the Lakers in 5 in the bubble. Then 2021, that 1 year in Washington, big numbers, triple-double average, 34-38, the 8th seed in the East. Lost to the Sixers in 5 in the first round. All right. What have I called him? He wears number 0, as in 0 rings. And all of a sudden, as I look back on these numbers, I say, the triple-double is the most overrated stat in the history of stats. It matters next to nothing on the scoreboard. Russell Westbrook had turned in right before your very eyes into a solo act of a stat machine. And he waltzed right into, in most people's eyes, the Hall of Fame. Surefire slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer. Wow. Without Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook is 8-21 in playoff games, 1-5 in playoff series. And for the record, KD left him, James Harden left him, Paul George couldn't take him anymore. Kawhi Leonard wouldn't even return his phone calls when he wanted to come to the Clippers, Russell Westbrook. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Another impossibly crazy twist of fate occurred. Somehow, Russ's childhood dream became his worst nightmare thanks to LeBron James. LeBron James pulled what I consider a genius move. He said, give me Russ over DeMar DeRozan, because if it works, I enhance my quote-unquote GOAT resume, because I could say I made Russ work in ways KD couldn't and James couldn't and PG couldn't and Kawhi obviously wouldn't. And if it didn't, and we know it really didn't, LeBron, the quote-unquote GOAT, says my partner Shannon Sharp, always needs a scapegoat. What better scapegoat than Russell Westbrook? Would you believe this year started with a big premiere here in LA, thanks to Gotham Chopra, a documentary on Russell Westbrook called Passion Play? All the Lakers attended the big night. Russ became a made man. He became epically famous, historically famous. I love Gotham, his work, and it was great. But was it deserved yet? I think not. I watched the Lakers on, here in Southern California, what's called Sports Spectrum. Every other commercial that were all made, obviously, before the year about Russell Westbrook. He's featured. He's the star of every commercial. Whew. Russ had to come in here thinking, I'm going to be bigger than Magic Johnson ever was in Laker Nation. And within about a month, I believe Laker Nation was horrified by what it witnessed. Who is this imposter masquerading as Russell Westbrook, starting Laker point guard? Huh? The truth was, he was exactly who he was back to UCLA days. I have a source I've been very close to for a long time in this league, who's very smart. I might even go so far as to say knows more hoops than I do. He texted me about a month ago and he said, come on, this is the same skill set, or lack thereof, that we've seen in Russ from the start back to UCLA. And that's exactly true. He's the same guy. Why on Undisputed did we have an almost daily Russell Westbrook turnover blooper reel or bad shot blooper reel? It's because he is who we didn't think he was, didn't realize he was. He was Westbrook from the start. So what did we see? I've been saying on Undisputed, he has the worst hands of any point guard I've ever seen, ever in pro or college basketball. He just has a terrible pair of hands. He cannot hold on to the basketball. Russ was the single worst three-point shooter in all the NBA this year. Russ was the third worst free throw shooter in all the NBA this year. Russ was the worst dunker in all the NBA this whole year. He missed 35% of his dunks, so that means he made 65. It's called a dunk. It's a sure shot. You slam the ball through the hoop. We see him missed occasionally, back ironed, but not the way Russ missed him. Going up, losing control of the basketball, losing the handle, dunking with an empty hand. That happened much of the time. And then even down to shots missed in the paint as you drive it. Worst shooting percentage in the paint this year for qualified players, Russell Westbrook. Wow. On LeBron's stage, by far the biggest stage Russ has ever played on after OKC, Houston, and Washington, Russ finally got exposed. And then he also led the league in surly post-game comments to the media, because every question he was asked, his answer would be, in effect, do you know who I am? How dare you ask me that question? I'm Russell Westbrook. Well, you used to be, or at least we thought you were, but you're not now. His exit interview the other day, Russ blamed Frank Vogel, who defended Russ beyond anybody else in the Laker organization, who fought for him, tried to keep him in the fourth quarter lineups as long as he could because he was getting pressure from upstairs, from Pelinka and Kurt Rambis. Get him out of there in the fourth quarter. He's a liability. And he was. It wasn't Vogel's fault. And then Russ blamed made-up media stories that he had to keep responding to that distracted him. He's asked, give us a specific. Well, you know what they were. No, we don't. I don't know one made-up story. I just spit facts at you. And in the end, he said even LeBron and Anthony Davis didn't really allow Russ to be Russ the way they said they would. Well, what does that mean? You're even taking shots at the big dogs? LeBron wanted you, I think for all the wrong reasons, but he blessed you. And yet, the first messenger was LeBron. And I'm convinced that Russ will be back next year with the Lakers, because I'm also convinced it's virtually impossible to get rid of that contract. You can say, oh, trade it as an expiring contract. For what? How? Who? Who wants this? Who wants to wish this nightmare on themselves? I mean, people are dumb out there, but they're not stupid. And in this case, $47 million? LeBron has to try again, because this has stained his resume. He even failed as the Lakers' de facto GM, the unofficial GM of the Lakers. He failed. He wanted Westbrook. So I believe LeBron will again attempt to make it work next year, because they're stuck with each other. And I believe the results will be exactly the same. And I believe that the following year, as Russ is 35 years of age, that it's highly possible that Russell Westbrook, surefire, slam dunk, first ballot Hall of Famer, will not be able to find another home in this league. That he'll be out of basketball at age 35. The bottom line, maybe it's the punchline, because we always played clown music underneath our Westbrook turnover blooper reels. So maybe the punchline is, the shock is that Russ didn't get exposed a lot earlier. I hope you enjoyed that video. You ready for more? Make sure you click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from the Skip Bayless Show. And don't forget to check out the full episode of the show wherever you get your podcasts by clicking the link in the description.